In a stunning move, senior Republican leaders are heading to Canada, not for leisure, but to counteract President Trump's aggressive new tariffs. Their mission: urgent damage control with Canadian officials and business leaders, as Trump's sweeping tariffs threaten economic chaos back home. This public break from the president is unprecedented, signaling deep dissent within the GOP. Trump, furious, has blasted these Republicans on social media, accusing them of betrayal and questioning their loyalty. The GOP's trip is a desperate attempt to protect local economies and reassure a key ally, even as it risks deepening the party's internal rift. For the first time in decades, a major party is running its own foreign policy, openly defying the White House. The question now: will this bold move force Trump to reconsider, or only widen the divide within the Republican Party? At the heart of the crisis are Trump's sweeping 25% tariffs on nearly all Canadian imports, a move that sent shockwaves through both economies and left businesses scrambling to adapt overnight. These tariffs were imposed under a declared national emergency, a rarely used presidential power that allows the White House to bypass normal legislative processes in times of crisis. Trump claims the emergency is justified by the fentanyl crisis, arguing Canada is a major transit point for the deadly opioid. He points to rising overdose deaths and the need for urgent action to stem the flow of drugs into American communities. By invoking emergency powers, he bypasses Congress, escalating tensions and raising constitutional questions about the limits of executive authority and the role of checks and balances in government. Supporters see this as decisive action to protect American interests. They argue that strong leadership is needed to confront both the drug crisis and unfair trade practices. But critics call it an abuse of power and a distortion of what constitutes a national emergency, warning that it sets a troubling example for future presidents. The move effectively builds an economic wall between two close allies, threatening jobs, disrupting supply chains, and putting thousands of livelihoods at risk on both sides of the border. This isn't Trump's first tariff battle, but targeting Canada, a historic partner and one of America's closest allies, marks a dramatic escalation in his trade war strategy. Lawmakers warn this sets a dangerous precedent, undermining the separation of powers and risking a trade war with a vital neighbor that could have long-term diplomatic consequences. The controversy is as much about presidential authority as it is about economics, raising fundamental questions about the balance of power and the future of U.S. Canada relations. Trump's tariffs have fractured the GOP, especially in the Senate, where the party's unity is being tested like never before. The chamber is tense, with old alliances fraying and new divisions emerging almost daily. Influential Republicans like McConnell, Murkowski, Collins, and Paul are openly rebelling, voicing concerns that echo throughout the Capitol. Their willingness to challenge the president marks a rare and significant moment in recent Senate history. For many of these senators, their states depend heavily on Canadian trade. Jobs, factories, and entire industries are at risk if the tariffs remain. The economic stakes are personal, affecting families and communities back home. Senators face a stark choice: defy Trump to protect their constituents and local economies, or fall in line and risk economic fallout at home, potentially losing the trust of the voters who sent them to Washington. The fear of shuttered factories and lost jobs looms large, making the decision even more fraught. Meanwhile, Democrats have introduced a resolution to block the emergency declaration. They see an opportunity to unite their caucus and put pressure on vulnerable Republicans. Just a handful of GOP votes could tip the balance, making every senator's decision critical. Trump is ramping up pressure, determined to keep his party in line and his agenda intact. He's publicly shaming dissenters, threatening their political futures, and using every tool at his disposal to enforce loyalty. The upcoming Senate vote is a dramatic test of Trump's grip on the party and a pivotal moment for the GOP's identity. The outcome will also shape the future of U.S. Canada relations, with consequences that could last for years. Will Republicans side with their states and constituents, or remain loyal to their president, even at great political risk? The outcome could reshape the GOP, redefining what it means to be a Republican in the Trump era. It will also determine the fate of the tariffs and the economic future of countless American communities. The world is watching as the party's internal battle goes public, and the stakes could not be higher. The 25% tariffs are already hitting Americans with higher prices on groceries, making everyday essentials more expensive for families across the country. From bread and milk to fresh produce, the impact is being felt at the checkout line. Beer, lumber, and a growing list of goods are all seeing price hikes, squeezing both consumers and small businesses who rely on these products daily. U.S. businesses, deeply tied to Canadian supply chains, face soaring costs, threatening jobs from Maine paper mills to Michigan auto plants. Many manufacturers are now struggling to absorb these new expenses, and some are even considering layoffs or production cuts. Canadian industries, reliant on U.S. markets, are bracing for layoffs and a sharp economic slowdown. Factories are scaling back shifts, and uncertainty is spreading among workers who fear for their livelihoods. Retaliation is inevitable. Canada is preparing its own tariffs on American goods, escalating the conflict into a full-blown trade war. The tit-for-tat measures are fueling anxiety among exporters and importers on both sides. Both economies are at risk, with workers and consumers paying the price for political brinkmanship. The uncertainty is making it harder for families to plan and for businesses to invest in the future. The tit-for-tat cycle could lead to business closures, job losses, and a chilling effect on cross-border investment. Communities that depend on trade are already feeling the strain. Economists warn the fallout could ripple far beyond North America, disrupting global supply chains and shaking investor confidence worldwide. Protectionism, once again, threatens to hurt those it claims to protect. The very workers and industries these policies aim to shield are now facing the harshest consequences. The stakes are real, immediate, and growing by the day. Every new tariff and counter-tariff adds to the uncertainty and the risk. The cost of this trade war will be felt in every household on both sides of the border, as families struggle to keep up with rising expenses and an uncertain economic future. Trump's justification for the tariffs, Canada as a fentanyl pipeline, doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Government data shows nearly all fentanyl seizures occur at the southern border, not the north. In 2024, only 43 pounds were seized at the Canadian border, compared to over 21,000 pounds from Mexico. Critics accuse Trump of exaggerating the threat to push a protectionist agenda, using the opioid crisis as political cover. Lawmakers and experts argue the real focus should be on the southern border and international criminal networks. Targeting Canada risks alienating a key ally in the fight against drugs, while doing little to address the actual crisis. Many see the fentanyl argument as a pretext for a broader America First trade war. Earlier this year, Trump floated the idea of Canada becoming the 51st U.S. state, a comment that sparked outrage and debate. While most Canadians reject the notion, the thought experiment reveals the massive political impact such a move would have. Canada's population would instantly shift the balance of power in Congress, likely giving Democrats a lasting majority. The Senate and Electoral College would tilt dramatically, making Republican victories far more difficult. For Canadians, the proposal is an affront to their sovereignty and identity, highlighting a deep misunderstanding of the relationship. The idea underscores the high stakes and underlying tensions in U.S.-Canada relations. It also explains in part the aggressive posture of the new tariffs, treating Canada as subordinate rather than as an equal partner. Beneath the tariff battle, a new political realignment is reshaping both countries. Trump's 2024 win drew unexpected support from urban and minority voters by focusing on economic issues and attacking progressive social policies. In Canada, Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives are surging with a similar message, promising affordability and appealing to working-class and immigrant communities. Polls show both leaders tapping into economic anxieties, shifting conservatism away from traditional values toward populist bread-and-butter issues. This parallel movement is redrawing political lines and could transform future U.S.-Canada relations. If Canada elects a conservative government, the dynamic with Trump's America could shift dramatically. Potentially closer, but still fraught with nationalist tensions. The ground is shifting, and the old political playbook no longer applies. The tariff crisis is just one front in a much larger transformation. The U.S.-Canada alliance faces its greatest test in generations. The Senate's decision on tariffs will shape the future, either forcing Trump to retreat or plunging both nations into a damaging trade war. The trust that has defined the relationship is at risk, with economic and diplomatic fallout looming. GOP leader's apology tour is a symptom of a deeper crisis within the party and American foreign policy. Trump's 51st state rhetoric and punitive tariffs may push Canada to seek new partners, fundamentally altering North America's balance. Even if leadership changes, the rise of populist conservatism suggests a more transactional, nationalist relationship ahead. The coming days will determine if the alliance can survive, or if this is the start of a new, uncertain era. The world is watching as history unfolds at the world's longest undefended border.